Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow guests.
It's Mr. Solis.
Alright, so we are back after last month's Backlash pay-per-view. We are back here today. How have you been, sir?
We've been okay. Holding on tight. Trying to make it through the last 10 days of school. Golly gee, Jack, this year has felt like it's lasted forever.
It certainly has. It feels way different than, the usual, we're already halfway through the year and it feels like nothing's happened, but it's been quite eventful.
I was talking to a buddy I supervised with after school. He joined the school in August 2021, and I'm telling Mr. Gonzalez, this is still your first year here. Like, I felt like we've been buddies, on the front lines for like 5. But no, it's been less than a calendar year since we've met and, bonded over, guess what, Jack? Professional wrestling.
Yeah. And similarly to that, I'll add, when it comes to the music world, that's kind of what's kept me realizing just how long this year is, obviously preparing just like how you and I do our top 10 matches at the end of the year. I do the music with Dom, and I am right now struggling to even think what my top 10 would be with just this half a year that we've had so far of 2022.
My goodness.
Like, I keep telling Dom, like, man, and to think there's still people that are, like, going to release, obviously, in the next coming months. And it's just such a crazy comparison because I think you asked me, I think it was on WrestleMania card, you had asked, did I have any match of the year contenders from that?
Oh, yes,
And so it's like I do that comparison with the music. It's like I am struggling with music, and I look at wrestling, and I don't know, maybe if it's just because I'm thinking solely of the WWE side of things and haven't gotten a chance to watch other stuff quite as often. But man, is that list going to be, like, at this current point, that list is looking like a struggle for me.
Me too, Jack. I think in the last 6 months, I've watched the least amount of wrestling I've ever watched in 6 months. Don't spoil the best of the Super Junior finals for me. I haven't seen it, Jack.
I haven't watched it yet, but I do know the outcome and the irony.
Oh, okay, I gotta sit down to that tonight. Just to, like, rip the Band-Aid off. You know what I have kept up with, Jack? Kenobi, Jack. Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
So that's one thing I forgot to mention to you. I think I brought up. I might have forgotten it, but on Friday during our Colorado trip, now 2 weeks ago. Wow, now I'm thinking about it, that's 2 weeks ago now, or yeah, that's gonna be 2 weeks ago this Friday. We went over to my cousin's house who was getting married, and in his basement area, that's where he has like a theater type setup. My 2 cousins, my brother, dad, and I watched the first 2 episodes of Kenobi there.
Wow, on a screen how big?
It was pretty big, and it was so big it had to be mounted to the wall.
Yeah.
And then I think I told Dom too. He had like these 2 like big old speakers, like almost theater style, like mounted to the wall as well to give you like almost like a surround sound type.
Hey, hi. Have you seen episode 3?
Yes.
I wish you'd been able to see episode 3 on that setup.
Yeah, I watching it too. I was like, man, this would have been so good in that little theater he had, because the first 2 episodes are already good, with that third one too. It was like
that third one though. I haven't even finished Moon Knight, but this one I'm all about.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't watch most of like a lot of the Disney Plus stuff because my brother gets it from our cousins, and so like one, it's a thing of like I don't have like the access he would, like I would have to have him put it on, or like go on his account on PlayStation because that's where he has it too. Right. So like my dad was like, oh, how come you haven't watched most of like the Disney Plus stuff like WandaVision and Moon Knight? And I'm just like, well, it's not as accessible to me. But then when they were talking about Kenobi, I was like, oh, you bet I'm gonna make time for that. But yeah, that was a real good episode as well.
Right on. Right before we get into the nitty gritty that is Hell in the Cell 2022, though, I've got to ask Jack: is your semester over?
Yes.
Woohoo! And that's which year are you done with?
2.
2! We halfway through it. Nice.
Yeah. And then I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, finish that final stretch.
Right on. Good. So no more finals.
Mm-mm.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. And speaking of finals, this match saw a final in the main event.
Oh, if ever there was one. Leaping Lizards, Jack.
Yeah, but let's see. Do you want to just jump straight into it, or do you want to go in match order?
We got to go in match order, Jack. But it's on our hearts. We'll just set it up like we were watching the show, that some pretty big news came up before the start of the show that had us all shook. Tell us, Jack, what hit the news waves that Sunday afternoon?
So yeah, the news that broke was that Cody Rhodes had injured himself while working out lifting weights, and the injury was that he tore his pec. And obviously, hearing about wrestlers tearing their pec previously, most people were like, "Oh, doubt Cody will make it tonight. They're probably gonna call an audible, either call off the match with Seth or give Seth a different opponent, and maybe have like Cody do a run-in." To set up whenever their next match would be. But we'll see when we get to that match what the outcome was.
Jack, that's doom for WWE because this card doesn't have Roman Reigns, it doesn't have the Usos, it doesn't have Drew McIntyre. The main event is Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes, and so half of this highly anticipated main event, in one of the only matches to care about. What's gonna happen? Is this a work, Jack? Are we being worked?
Are we being worked?
The pre-show, Kayla, I think it's Kayla, she's coming on and saying, hey, he's gonna be here. Don't let the rumors fool you. They say that he's not gonna be here. They say he's gonna fight. And then I kind of think, this sounds very worky. I think he's just like building up the story of the never say die Cody Rhodes. But we start off the night with a triple threat for the Raw Women's Championship. It's Bianca Belair defending against Asuka and Becky Lynch.
Yeah. What a triple threat when just looking at the name value in that match.
I underestimated it. I definitely telling you, I only cared about Cody Seth coming in, but I'm watching this one, Jack, and I go, oh, okay. You've piqued my interest. Super stellar athletes.
Yeah, I will say I did walk in with a little not as hyped, mainly because I was like, oh well, there's more than likely gonna be more so storytelling between Becky and Asuka, because those were the two that were kind of feuding, and they kind of threw Bianca into the mix. But
that's funny, because I thought it was actually gonna be Bianca. Becky, you know what I mean? Continuing this never-ending story that Asuka was just randomly thrown in.
Yeah, but this match really did well storytelling-wise, with including all 3 women and telling an overarching story between all 3 women.
What was the story, Jack?
Well, the different things I picked up on was, the main one being with Becky, obviously, like you said, it's still building off upon the WrestleMania battle between her and Bianca. And the one thing I noticed the most was you see Becky, obviously it's a typical heel thing, but throughout the match she's constantly trying to take advantage of anyone else's offense. So if Bianca hits a big move on Asuka, or Asuka hits a big move on Bianca, she's right there ready to throw them out the ring and try and take advantage, taking the pin, maybe doing more moves. And as we see in the finish, that comes back to bite her.
You put it perfectly, Jack. Yes, that was the story I picked up on immediately. I agree. But to ensure that it could have been anyone, there was some big old offense coming from all 3 participants.
Yeah, and ever since SummerSlam, anytime I see Becky hit that manhandle slam, I always just like tense up in anticipation that like don't tell me it's gonna be like SummerSlam again.
Yeah. But how about that flurry of offense from like Asuka? I think it was Becky who was just eating back fists and elbows and kicks. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was really good, and I saw a lot of people talking about how the four horsewomen must just have some like unspoken agreement with Asuka that like if she's gonna do moves like that, there's no holding back.
I had the exact same thought.
Yeah, because I've noticed it too.
I love the thought that Becky's like, go for it. That's gotta look good.
Yeah, that was real good.
I thought of you, Jack. You know, it's another great like storytelling element is like this match hasn't ended because she hasn't tried to put in the Asuka lock, right? Like it's not even been attempted. Once she attempts it, it's towards the end of the match. And you're like, here we go. Stakes are high. She can walk away with this. And I thought of you when Becky tried that old, this is how we beat Asuka and Shayna Baszler every time.
Oh man, yeah, that was a very like close call one too. You mentioned, of course, at the start, athleticism. There was all those spots of Bianca just doing backflips off the turnbuckles to avoid certain attacks, you know, and there was her double spot moves as well. Mm-hmm. They really let all three women shine. It was a really good triple threat, you know.
Agreed. How's it end? You spoke of the ending, Jack. All throughout the match, Becky, the dastardly heel, is trying to throw somebody out, pin the other person. Throw somebody out, pin the other person. How's this match end, Jack?
Lynch hits that manhandle slam on Asuka, only to be thrown out the ring by Bianca Belair, who retains her title.
Goodness gracious. Take that, heel.
Yeah, real good match. And especially, you know, it still opens up the door because, you know, it still looks like maybe like they might, or I don't know, based off of what happened on Raw, because we're recording this on Tuesday, maybe they're pulling Becky away from the title scene just for a little bit to give it a cool off, and because of the fact that, you know, it was Becky that technically put Asuka away, you still have that storyline to have a one-on-one match between Bianca and Asuka somewhere down the line.
I think with Money in the Bank a month away, I think that's where Becky's focused, like getting another shot at it this way, you know, another dastardly way. And Asuka, throw her in the mix too. I mean, how many women do we have on this division? Like 7? So put them all in there.
Yeah, I saw someone bringing up, oh, are we going to get qualifying matches? And I was like, have they seen this roster?
Qualifying matches. Hey, we don't have enough time on this podcast to talk about the tag team tournament that is never going to happen, but they win and mentioned on TV, Jack, like it's going to happen.
I just realized, I don't think, I think that happened in between, right? The whole Sasha Naomi thing?
In between what? Oh, in between our last recording and this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't think we were able to cover that because... Oh, yeah, because the events were supposed to happen at Hell in a Cell where, you know, the women were supposed to chime. Yeah.
Yeah, we should have, like, we could have been covering Sasha versus Bianca and Naomi versus Ronda, or the other way around.
I think it was the other way around, yeah. But,
I think it was the other way around.
Yeah, but so that was the funniest part is when they announced the tournament, you know, after the whole Sasha Naomi situation happened, and everyone just goes, do they realize they only have 2 tag teams?
How even?
Yeah, like people were like, the tournament would just be the finals match, and they keep talking about it, and I'm just in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna get scrapped. I know it is. They're probably gonna just scrap those titles.
I like the idea of like McMahon saying, we'll just have a tournament and we'll just get women from the NXT, and then he went down to NXT and he was like, what the hell is this? What have you done with the place? And then he watched the women wrestling and he goes, oh, they're not ready.
Oh, man. But, yeah, Money in the Bank, definitely you're going to just see, much like last year where it's just, they're going to announce whoever is going to be in it, you know, and yeah. I think Asuka and Becky are, like, guaranteed slots, especially seeing as how Rhea Ripley won the opportunity to challenge Bianca Belair on Raw.
Right. So I tell you what, Jack, we've got 6 more matches to go. If this bleeds into a second episode, maybe we talk a bit more about the Banks Naomi incident.
For sure. But so, final thoughts on that triple threat, sir?
It's up there. Could it be match of 2022? There ain't much up against it in my mind.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same way, and hopefully, if things pick up in the second half, I could still maybe see it being like lower top 10, like in the back half. But that was a really good triple threat, and we move on.
Like this is one of the best heel Becky matches that I can think of, right?
Yeah, I felt the same way.
For a long time, she's just kind of been wrestling as Becky. The heel stuff doesn't, it only happens on Raw. This was, sinister Becky throughout the match.
Yeah, you definitely saw a lot of her character work shine through. Much like we'll see the character work of her husband shine through in the main event.
Yes.
But, move on to Bobby Lashley facing off against Omos and MVP in a handicap match.
I thought of your dad on this one, you know why?
The heels.
Almost. That giant mountain of a man. The, is it Nigerian giant?
I think so. Let me just
Yeah, it is, according to Bleacher Report.
Yeah.
He needs a partner, Jack. He needs MVP on his side.
This is like 2018 when Braun Strowman needed Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre as his tag buddies to face off against the Shield.
I mean, at least that's a 3-on-3 affair. But yeah, I hear you. It's just it's so funny and wild. It's like, why though? I mean, the only rationale I can come up with is Bobby wants to get his hands on MVP. The only way he's going to do that is if he's an active participant in the match.
Yeah, and leading into the match, that Bobby Lashley diss track by MVP that played before.
Oh God, I'm so glad you brought it up, Jack. I heard it on the pre-show and in the regular show. It was as good as an offense as anything the women put on in that match. I'm like, Bobby's coming in hurt. He ain't 100%.
Yeah, oh man, it was funny because when I was going to put on the match for my dad and my brother who were watching the day after,
yeah,
that just starts playing and I just start busting up because I didn't see it the first time around. I guess I might have gone to do something while it played before the match started, and I just started watching it. I was just busting up the entire time because it was just so funny hearing MVPs say all that stuff about him too, and a lot of the stuff, the funniest part too was a lot of the stuff was true. When he's talking about how he left Shelton and Cedric behind and stuff, and the deepest cut was when he started bringing up the old Bobby Lashley that you don't hear WWE bring up at all. He was like, "Oh, you were ECW champion and nobody cared."
Wow. What I thought was the deepest cut was the line about how he's jealous that MVP has all of his hair.
Oh, that one too, yeah. Oh man, I saw that and I just couldn't stop busting. I was like, oh man,
good. It was so good.
Yeah, but thoughts on the match, sir?
I want to talk more about the rap, the diss track.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, nothing stands out to me. Short of maybe the aforementioned Cedric Alexander's attempt to help somebody. Who is he helping?
I don't really know. That's the funniest part is that it's kind of difficult. I mean, there was a backstage segment where he talks about wanting to make his own, make himself his own man, if that makes sense. Be his own man. But it was I guess they're going the route of because I think he said something along the lines of he didn't do it to help Bobby. He was telling Bobby himself oh, I didn't do that to help you. That was my revenge on the two of them. So it's if he did it for anyone, it was himself.
Okay. Kinda.
And then of course you get the little post-match tease after Lashley puts the Hurt Lock on MVP and he taps out. We get the little tease where Lashley grabs a fan's replica championship and proclaims himself the champion.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Like, that seemed really unscripted, and I almost think that somebody would have told him not to do it. Because, like, a proclamation like that implies that he's going to come after Roman. You know what I mean? I feel like the Roman's booked for the next couple of months. But yeah, to see, I thought it was great. I'm like, I hope that's him going into business for himself, because that's exciting.
Yeah, especially because, like, it still might still be storyline, but who knows, like, if, the whole thing about Orton being injured, whether that's storyline or not, and if he comes back soon enough. But if he doesn't, then you could obviously run Lashley and Reigns at SummerSlam. I think that's still two big enough names for a SummerSlam event.
Sure.
Because it looks like Riddle has Money in the Bank, and then Drew is already, like, making his claim to the Wales pay-per-view.
Clash at the Castle.
Yeah.
And, like, Lashley in SummerSlam is a strong opponent who you'd be okay not winning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And especially, we'll get into that later, about plans changing due to injury.
Plans changing. Oh, the winds, they are a-changing.
Yeah, and WWE isn't the only one. As we've seen in AEW themselves, too, injuries really throwing wrenches in their plans as well.
Yeah, how funny is that joke, Daniel Bryan, putting your leg in between the ramp and the ring? Ha ha ha! LOL, OMG, uh-oh. I don't even know what he hurt.
Yeah, I don't know much either about what he hurt. I just saw, I don't know, oh yeah, Daniel Bryan's going to be out for a few, or I don't even think they gave a time. They were just like, oh, Daniel Bryan's out, Jeff Hardy's out, Adam Cole's out until Forbidden Door. Like, they're
Punk's out.
Yeah, Punk's out for who knows how long, and yet he's still going to be champ, and they're going to crown an interim champ.
Talk about that if there's time.
Yeah. But, digress. Move on to the next match just to quickly get things covered. Ezekiel facing off against Kevin Owens.
I really want to talk about all those other things we just mentioned more than this match.
Yeah, especially because throughout this match, I was just like watching, and I was watching my brother and my dad, and I tell my dad, so did you know that this gear that Ezekiel is wearing, they had originally had Elias in this gear, and they didn't want to go with it because they said he looked too much like Macho Man. But yet, all they did was shave the beard. But yet, what do I see him do at one point in this match? An elbow drop. And I just I'm telling my dad, I'm like, they didn't want those comparisons. They didn't want him looking too similar. But yet he's still dressed and doing the moves like the man.
It's weird, It's weird. And what a fall from grace for Kevin Owens, who main evented night 1 of WrestleMania against Stone Cold Steve Austin in an actual match in Texas. Here he is, 2 months later, dealing with Ezekiel. A man who's his own brother, and he's dressed like Macho Man, and he's fighting like Macho Man.
Yeah, and I mean, to get straight to it, Owens wins the match, but it's not like that's the end of the feud, as it's still continuing as seen on Raw.
Right. I felt better about the match once he won. I would have been devastated if he lost. But it would have made sense for him to lose because Ezekiel's the one that, we're building up, ?
Yeah. See, that's my kind of issue a lot of the times, is the direction never really seems how would
clear.
Clear.
Like the almost Bobby Lashley feud. Who are we building up, Jack? One of these guys is being built up, one of them is being torn down, and my concern is we're building up the guy who was built. And we're tearing down the guy with loss after loss who we're just getting used to. We're just getting to know.
Yeah. So, I really don't know what the direction, what the payoff is for Ezekiel. Obviously, I'm not asking for things to be predictable all the time, but,
no,
it's just I want some clarity as to what is, the whole point of it all.
What's the point?
like, what is the point of the Ezekiel KO feud? Because it's like, who is supposed to come out of this looking better? Like, so I'll give quickly a sneak peek into the episode I plan for Thursday for the game days that I do. I'm gonna talk about the TNT title over in AEW, and one of the things I was talking about, because I was talking about how the current state of it at like towards the end. I was talking about how, like, when it came to the Sammy Guevara Scorpio Sky never ending feud that only lasted surprisingly only 2 months, I was talking about like how at the end of it, neither man came out looking better than when they started that feud. And like, that's my whole kind of point here is, what is the point of this feud if neither man walks out looking any better? Or like how you said, neither man or who is supposed to be getting built up, and is it the right choice of who gets built up? It's like,
yeah.
Like, my whole thing is looking at this, okay, it's good to have little side feuds, but there always has to be a point in them. And so my thing is like, who's going to walk out of this Ezekiel Kevin Owens feud looking any better than before? Because like you mentioned, Owens was in the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. It's not like he can come out looking any better than that other than winning the world title.
Hindsight 2020, and I'm excited, Jack. We're recording on Tuesday. Here's what happened on Monday between these two. Ezekiel challenged Owens to a rematch. Owens said he'd only agree if he admitted he was Elias. Ezekiel said, I am Elias. Owen agreed to the match. Ezekiel said, I lied. And then hits him with a flying knee strike. That's it. That's our story. That's our story progression. What? Jack, the only way this pays off in a meaningful way is if we get Elias showing up during an Ezekiel match.
Yeah, and it was funny. My dad goes, could you imagine if Elias was actually a twin?
That would be, like, legit. We never knew, but he actually had a brother the same size, shape, and identical, you know what I mean, in every way. And he just walks up going, this hasn't been a joke at all. We've actually been brothers. And like, that would, Jack, buy you and me an Ezekiel shirt, buy your dad an Ezekiel shirt, buy Marco an Elias shirt. If something like that were to happen.
Yeah, I like how people were saying, like, I saw people proposing because of just the similarities. Someone was like, hey, he's played Doppelganger once before. What if they bring back Damian Sandow to pretend to be his Elias?
I want something like that, just to have a payoff, because it sounds like a story you started before you knew how it was going to end.
Yeah, what is the common phrase? They put the
cart before the horse.
Yeah, they put the cart before the horse. And speaking of storylines that just you don't really get what the payoff is, we have AJ Styles, Finn Balor, and Liv Morgan facing off against Edgelord Day.
Oh, I love it. Edgelord Day. Which is Edge, Damian Priest, and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah, so we're facing off in a big old 6 mixed tag match.
Jack, did you hear about what happened on Raw on Monday?
Yes, which is why I said the whole thing about another feud where you kind of are confused.
I am less bothered by this one. Let's talk about the match. What stood out to you, Jack?
I really liked a lot of Liv Morgan's spots with Rhea, because I noticed someone mention it, and it was that Rhea doesn't usually get to work with, how would you say it, like, more cruiserweight-esque opponents, like, especially when her time down in NXT, because I've seen stuff of like different moves and selling that Rhea has done. So they were like, much like you see a lot of the big people in wrestling, work better when they have like a smaller opponent.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of good offense there. The one thing that stood out was AJ getting busted open off the dive to the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Cody was backstage in tears at the fact that AJ gets to bleed on camera and he doesn't, even though he's in a Hell in a Cell match.
Oh man, What do we... I'm not going to spoil nothing. As I watched, I'm trying to make sense of it, Jack. I want it to make sense. A solid affair. Nothing stood out to me as, like, problematic. You know what I think I did? I think I just waited for, like, one of these three people to turn on the other two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's what I was waiting for. I think we've set up this precedent that Judgment Day matches always end with somebody joining the group. You know what I mean? So This was a little awkward just because no one did. Any spots stand out to you as, like, memorable? Besides AJ's bleeding?
I can't really recall many spots from this match.
Me neither. AJ hit a phenomenal forearm on Edge. I thought he's too close to the ropes. That's how he's going to break it up. But he didn't. AJ scooped his arm and his leg. He got the hook in. That could have ended the match, but Priest pulled him out. And Edge, solid, sold it. He was on the ground for, like, ever.
Yeah, and then, there was that, like, again, aforementioned, the dives to the outside that all three members did, and that's where AJ gets busted open. And people were kind of worried, like I was telling my dad, people were kind of worried he might have gotten concussed because it was like a collision of the heads between him and Edge.
Yeah.
People are kind of hoping he isn't out for too long because he wasn't on Raw. And
I hear you. So let's talk about Raw. First off, Rhea distracts Finn Balor from hitting the coup de grace. Gets in the way.
Yeah,
and that one thing leads to another. Edge spear. 1, 2, 3. Why does Edge keep getting these victories? Why does he hold this? Most seasoned of them all get these pins. Goodness gracious. But you know what I thought, Jack? Even on Sunday, I thought, what a natural way of setting up an Edge Balor feud. I'm okay with this being a setup for something big later down the line because think about it, Jack. How did the AJ one start? He literally goes, somebody stand up to me. And he stood up to him and he went, boom, that's what you get for standing up to me. And then the one before that was the Miz feud, which was, I'm old and have grit. You're young and obnoxious. You want things handed to you, even though you've totally worked for everything you've had. And I'm like, please, give me a more organic, a more logical setup to a match like Balor v. Edge, which after Monday, I now know we're definitely working towards.
Yeah, so obviously on Monday, Judgment Day comes out and they're like, hey, we're adding a new member. And unlike the previous times, it's not going to be a surprise, so say, and them showing up in a match. We're going to have him come out right now. And it turns out to be Finn Balor.
What?
And everyone was like, what? And stuff. And so they come out, and then out of nowhere, Damian Priest starts talking. I forget what he talked about most in the promo. But then he's like, oh, time to drop the one thing that's been holding us back. And then they all look at Edge and go, you. And they turn on Edge.
What?
I will say that is something I don't think anyone really saw, because most people were shocked on social media.
And I was shocked in the right way. I'm not watching. I seen it on Instagram, but I go, oh. Edge, Finn Balor just straight up took over his shtick. I hope he keeps the Metalinga song and the wings and the purple. Hope he stops talking about the mountain. Or do I want him to keep talking about the mountain of omnipotence? Nah, I'd be okay if they stop talking like that. And we reached this this part of the cycle, Jack, where I'm okay with Damian Priest again. It goes in cycles, and it depends on how much agency he's given. If he has too much, I'm bothered. But if he doesn't, if he has just the right amount of none, we're okay.
Yeah, but that was so funny, and it was funny. My dad was shocked too, because I was shocked as well. I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. That's like a good type of shock where, you aren't, why the heck would they do that? You're like, well, where are they going to go from here, And my dad was like, I wonder why would they, turn on Edge. And that's when I started explaining to my dad, well, if AJ's out, potentially with injury, even if it's just for a short while, and what we'll talk about soon, you know, they're going to need another babyface on the roster other than Bobby Lashley. So,
Yeah.
you know, they probably were seeing how things weren't working as well with Edge.
Right.
You know, so they thought to just go back to what was working while also still continuing the Judgment Day stuff by giving him a new leader in Balor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's that to it. And, you know, just kind of change of pace and, you know, like I said, injuries kind of causing changes where it's more than likely they're going to need Edge to be a babyface.
I think it's a natural story to tell. Hey, old man, think you can get the old rub from us? Psych. Hey, I see a hand here. It must be Marco. Howdy. Jack, somebody on YouTube pointed this out. I thought it was an incredible insight. Who points out Edge as the weak link?
Damian Priest.
Who threw him on the table?
Damian Priest.
Who's standing tall over him at the end of that segment, Jack?
Damian Priest.
Leaping lizards.
The future of WWE.
I'll tell you what, if my man laid out Edge, he's got my vote. So long as he doesn't start yammering on about the mountain of omnipotence, I want him to come back, Jack, the next week and go, he wasn't making any sense. How am I going to grow as a professional with a man who ain't making any sense?
Oh man, yeah. That I actually want to see where they go with this whole feud. You know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, especially because it gives Balor direction too. After it's like other than like joining for that tag match, what else was he gonna be doing?
Yeah, no, this definitely gives him something to do. Maybe now we go after the U.S. title. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, I guess we'll see what their plans are for Money in the Bank. It's funny, without Roman around to like go after, we have a Money in the Bank to go after. A lot of power in that briefcase.
Yeah. So, gonna be real interesting to see what they do with this new leader faction thing.
How many minutes we got, Jack?
7.
7! We got enough to talk about. One more match.
Yeah, so before we get to the main event, obviously there is Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin in a no-holds-barred match.
Mm-hmm. I was real mad, Jack, that somebody pointed out that this was the MJF Wardlow storyline told by WWE. I hate how true that statement is.
I saw someone bring that up as well. Oh, man.
It remains to be seen which one is better.
Yeah, I mean, gotta see. And, you know, heading into this, they had their match at WrestleMania Backlash. But, of course, this time with the added stipulation that it's no holds barred. And I saw people saying Madcap Moss was essentially, like, repackaged. But I was like, what's different other than the attire? You know, like, he still seemed like the same character.
Yeah, I saw somebody say, gosh, why don't we just call him Riddick again? And I go, I don't know, Madcap is a funnier name. You know, for all the names that they've come up with that range from stupid to absurd, I'd keep Madcap.
Yeah, and, I mean, props to the guy for, getting over with the fans, because the majority of them were cheering for him and throughout this entire
And that was Chicago on Sunday. They don't cheer for just anybody.
Yeah, Chicago's usually the ones that are like, yeah, we're going to cheer for what we want. And especially knowing history, they cheer for the heels a ton more, too.
Absolutely. Baron Corbin showing it how it's done. Chicago was not going to cheer that man. They were, boo you, the villain of this story. And you know what I love, Jack? When Happy Corbin comes out, he's usually all smiles at WrestleMania, all smiles with his casino, video and music, right? And in this match, Jack, he comes out like kind of doing the same moves, but definitely holding back. Definitely has a lot of worry on his face. More so than either competitor in the Hellacious Cell match later. Like, he's just kind of got this, what have I got myself into look that I wish more people walked into these physical combats with.
Yeah, and especially Madcap Moss himself, too, with the whole thing of Corbin injuring his neck earlier in the feud. It's like there's that added tension of there. And, they even showed in the video package where when Adam Pearce made the match, you see, like, Corbin, like, essentially afraid and just like, oh, well, what's going to happen here, Do I really want to get involved in this?
Madcap was out for blood.
Yeah, he was going crazy during this match, and you mentioned the fans and Corbin doing his best efforts to make sure he didn't get cheered at all. The fans, of course, typically chanting for tables, and Corbin doesn't give it to him.
He literally goes under the ring, holds it, gives him that tease, puts it away, and Madcap should have busted the table out.
Yeah, he should have. Instead, he gets the chair, but he really should have.
Like, at least as far as what I could see, Madcap is going beat for beat with the plan that they laid out. This is going to end with him Pillmanizing his neck with the stairs, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the plan. And I don't think he and a lot of young guys have it in them to shift. But my guy, the whole arena was chanting for tables. You'd be the most over guy in the world. Maybe they'd have been chanting the table. Maybe Cornette. But give them what they want, and you're the guy who gave them what they want. And then do this chair spot. You can do both.
Yeah, and a part of me feels like he maybe would have made that audible had we changed up the match order. Because as we know, following this no-holds-barred match is a Hell in a Cell match, where you're going to see a lot of that stuff used. So I think maybe had they done this earlier in the card, maybe following following like the Bobby Lashley match, I feel like he might have done it,
Would have been spaced out enough that we could have done both. They don't seem redundant.
Yeah, that's kind of...
going to yell at them and say, you got one coming later.
Yeah, that's my headcanon for that spot.
Nice. Valid.
But as you mentioned, Madcap gets the win and Pillmanizes Corbin's neck, putting the chair around it, using the steps, and Corbin is, was he stretchered out? I can't remember if he was stretchered out.
I think he was.
Yeah, so he's stretchered out as Moss gets the victory.
Yep. And we've got 2 matches left to go, Jack. Don't forget. A U.S. title defense.
Ah, yes, I forgot about
Ali, Chicago's own, is going to fight the champion Theory? What happened to his first name?
That's what Marco said when he was watching the match. He was like, "What happened to Austin?"
I hate that he has A's in his gear, and like we're just supposed to pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah. Oh man. But so yes, got the U.S. title match, and of course, the main event: Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, Hell in a Cell. Will it happen?
Will it happen? And then, with the time we have remaining, let's talk Sasha Banks, Naomi, scandal. Let's talk Punk. Let's talk Forbidden Door.
Yes. So, thank you all for joining for this episode. We'll see y'all in the next episode, part 2. See you there.